I'm gonna pull up the dev tracker. We will get into gameplay, I promise. All right, I know this is gonna be like super tiny font. You guys can't really see it just yet. We'll do that, and then we'll go. So this is a very lengthy post. Try to make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. Okay, so let's talk about it. This was posted yesterday towards the end of the day, and this is probably the most significant update to PvP we've had in a very long time, and it sounds like this is just the beginning. This actually coincides with the letter to the players that we saw, and the mentioning the PvMP updates that were going to be happening throughout the year. Let's see what we're talking about here. Yeah, I'm talking about the roadmap with update 35 and beyond. So I'm going to present some of the ideas here and leave a thread open for a couple days to get some feedback, then close it down while we weigh all of the feedback and adjust. The tower changes. Now, this is actually in reference to the keeps. I don't know. It's not referring to the outpost. I believe it's just the 5 main. Oh, it'll actually be 4 because Eisendeep is not going to be it's going to be a boss home. But we'll get into that. We'll get into that. So the tower changes. Made changes to the strength of the defenders at the keeps as a soft step forward toward something new and a way to combat some of the potential lag that exists in the Ettenmoors. One thing they've talked about in the past is that there are so many NPCs within the keeps and all the different keeps, you know, and roaming around at the different hotspots and camps, that is an issue because all of those things have to generate loot. They have spawn timers, they have, you know, they have effects and things like that. So they want to reduce the number of NPCs out in the Ettenmoors, which also, if you're not familiar with what the Ettenmoors are, it's actually a map that players in Lord of the Rings Online go to engage in player versus player activity. In LOTRO, it's called PvMP, which is player versus monster player. You have your heroes that we spend all of our time on, and then you have the monster players, which when you log in, they are like orcs, urukai, spiders, wargs, stuff like that are automatically max level characters. Doesn't mean they're amazing to start with. They have a lot of work to do to get some of their skills and corruptions and things like that to be fully effective. That's kind of the gist of PvMP. We also want to revisit the way that the towers are attacked and defended so that there is much more active push and pull around them. Here's how we are looking at the potential to achieve that. On the defend side of things, it does make a whole lot of sense that the entryways to the important parts of the towers and keep are just guarded by defenders. Maybe they are talking about that because it says towers. Oh, well, the keep is technically at the top. So it would make more sense if there were doors erected to slow down the progress of enemies and provide the defenders with an opportunity to, well, defend. So we want to bring back doors to the towers and to the keeps to slow down the progress against the commander in each location. Yeah, it has been since launch. This would mean that the defenders would have fewer guards outside and need fewer NPC guards inside. Getting in and out of the keep when not under siege would require speaking with a guard who would let the player or monster player into the main building or main battle platform. When under siege, there would be a secondary entrance reflecting tunnels that exist beneath the tower keep, accessible to controlling factions, that opens near the tower keep that players can fight near or around, but always allow the defenders to enter the apex of the tower or keep to aid in their defense. Doors can be upgraded through questing, have more defense and staying power to further deter the attackers and assist the defenders. This is pretty cool. So you can't just send a one-man party in and, you know, take out the CG or the tyrant and flip keeps that way. No, it's going to take a little bit more, which is good, because forcing, like, if you want that extra bonus, infamy and renown and commendation earning and all that stuff, you want those keeps, you want those bonuses and buffs. So this is going to encourage, it's not going, well, I shouldn't say force, it's going to encourage more fights that are not at grams and GV. Additionally, the ruins near the tower and keep gain some defensive capacity with quests that allow the controlling faction to station a siege weapon atop the battlement. The siege weapon would attack enemies and come in 2 flavors: ballista and catapults. Ballista would be powerful single target slow shooting siege, and catapults would be AoE siege that fires even slower but spread the damage out among attackers. Of course, the attackers would rather see the targets destroyed so that they don't suffer against them. So the attacking, well, first off, let's talk about it. Siege weapons. This has been something that's been talked about in Lord of the Rings Online PvP for the better part of a decade, maybe since the PvP started. I feel like there was always this like underlying conversation about siege weaponry was always there, but we never really saw much. We saw, you know, the little lava dump at the top, and we saw the murder holes in the door and stuff like that, but we never really saw anything else of substance come out of that. So I think this is going to be pretty cool. This is going to be, you have reasons to go do other things in the Ettenmoors. This will give you reasons to go engage with other areas and do things to make fighting more interesting, more fun. Naturally, though, there will still be people that just want to do raid versus raid and roam around the map, and that's cool. You can do your thing. I know with myself and Tar here in the chat, we loved small group combat. You know, 6 to 8, maybe 10 people. Not a full-blown 24-person raid. It had its moments where it was fun, but taking the small group around the moors and flipping keeps and fighting those little splinter groups, that was always the most fun for us. I always felt anyway. For a long time, it's just been things didn't matter. So just, you know, go fight the 3 people that are logged in at Grams or GV, and that's all it ever became. Sometimes on a random Friday night, you might be able to get a decent amount of raiding going out in the moors, and it was fun. I think this is a good start here, and I'm very interested to see how the siege weaponry works in practice. So on the attacking side, for attackers, we would allow for the purchase with commendations and use of short cycle siege weapons to add to the field when assaulting the towers and keeps. These new items would come with restrictions in that they can only be set up in certain areas around the towers and keeps. So you're not gonna be able to just go, you know, buy a ballista and, you know, stick it out in the field and be firing it at people, which would be kind of fun. But the whole point of siege weaponry is to assault a keep. That is the whole point. They can only attack the doors NPC defenders directly, but any splash damage done by the weapons will affect the defenders. So if I fire directly at a player, they won't take damage. But if I hit a door or a, you know, another siege weapon, that damage, if it's an AoE and players are around, it will damage them as well. So these will actually come in 3 flavors: ballista, catapults, and the dreaded battering ram. I don't know how a battering ram. We're just gonna have like baby Gronds running around. Battering rams would only be usable on doors, which makes sense. Attackers would also be able to scale the ruins outside of the tower keep, destroy the siege weapons, and call the marshals out of the main battle area. Then they could set up a single siege weapon in the tower to rain down on the enemy. The goal here would be to allow for multiple angles of attack and support when trying to take the tower and central keep. That sounds like fun to me. I don't know about you guys, but that sounds like fun to me. Different ways to engage with PvP. Sounds all siege weapons are attackable by the opposition and can only be set up when you control the appropriate locations. So like I said, there are restrictions to it and how it would work. So the tutorial changes. We need to change the introductory quest on the monster play side and on the player side. We should have done this when we made it the experience free last year, and we were hoping to get these new experiences together as soon as possible in the new year. For monster players, the flow will take them through their initial greeter to the war tyrant, to the emissary of Angmar, their clan blessing corruption, visit the corruptor, visit the trainer, and learn March, which, if you're not familiar, March is a newer skill that is basically mount speed for them. There's some work being done on maps and stuff like that, so March is a new skill that the creeps are gonna hit. I would love it, and this may be what's happening, I'm not 100% sure, but I would love it if both sides had the same thing. Like, either they all have mounts or they don't have mounts. They have maps or don't have maps. Like, just level it out. You got to level this out as much as you can. I don't like that we have mounts and they have maps. I don't know. I've never really liked it. I'm sure there's people that love it, and that's fine too. Yeah, try out a skill or two and then go to the War Tyrant to complete the tutorial loop. For the players, you'll speak to the initial NPC, speak with the Captain General, hit the level cap, directed to the vendors or purchase their Audacity gear for gold, get the map to Glan Vreg, and return to the Captain General. So that's just kind of a very low level change there. So not a huge deal there. On general questing and rewards, I was pretty intrigued by this when I read through it. We want to revise the tediousness of quests. I love that they acknowledge stuff like that, where, yeah, it is tedious. It's annoying. We want to revise the tediousness of quests in the Etmors and make them more rewarding. To do this, we're going to reduce the number of items needed to complete the quests, increase the rewards on infamy and renown and commendations, put higher rewards on quests that are for defeating opposing players. We also want to put LI experience onto the player quests in the Etmors, as we do want this to be another viable way to advance your LIs. Pretty awesome. We'll add random rare spawns to the Etmors coming out of the depths of the Delving of Frore. That will move around the map. That will allow for players and monster players to get quests for defeating those monsters with a reward that is where'd I go? Here we go. Allow for players and monster players to get quests for defeating monsters and rewards that is basically related to their faction. This means that the rewards for finding and defeating rare monsters in the Etmors will have the ability to drop LI based rewards, gear rewards. If you're lower level, it'll drop gear that is equivalent to those raids in that, and gear normally acquired with commendations in the Etmors. So that's actually cool, because then you don't necessarily have to sit there and just farm for, you know, commendations and all that stuff. You have a chance for one of those pieces to drop. If you're level capped, you have a piece drop off one of these bosses that randomly spawn in the world. So that'd be cool. For the monster side, new rare and long missing skins and other boons for the other upcoming enhancements to monster play experience. Bonus events will happen on a rotating schedule to incentivize entering the Etmors, and new discoverable experiences will allow for players to find a new style of pet that will shape and develop over time. I don't even like pets, and that sounds cool. Denizens of the Delving of Frore. Well, actually, back to questing and rewards. That's actually really cool, because having the Etmors not be a static situation is important. Having it be things happen that are not of the player's control. I dig that. Add a randomness to the experience. I like that. So honestly, if there's less people out there, you know, it might be a little bit harder to do some stuff. So it's going to encourage more people to go out there and experience it. I think that's good. That's good. And just to be able to reward people for combat. That's good. So the denizens of the Delving of Frore. So right now the delving is closed, if I remember correctly. I think that was in a recent update. You can't go down there anymore right now. The first Etten Deep boss to return to the Etmors comes in the form of Winterzeb. Grodris, players and monster players, and her arrival will change the way the Etmors plays. Eisen Deep Mine will no longer be controllable by the forces of good or evil. Instead, the matriarch will assert control over her brood and begin nurturing the next generation of hatchlings, which of course means she will be available to summon through some means. Basically, if you guys remember a certain spider that is up in Angmar, you kill enough hatchlings and she comes out. No bog breath, anyone? Which is cool. That's a pretty, because if the combat starts on it, yeah, and then she comes out, you could find yourself in a world of hurt if that all of a sudden pops up. Defeating her will grant the successful side with bonuses to earning infamy and renown, commendations, and provide a bonus to damage at the keeps for a period of time. She will not reappear until that bonus is expired, and then the battle for her bonus can begin again. So kind of like how the old Etten Deep bosses worked. You'd go down, you'd fight them, you'd kill them, you get the buff. When the buff expired, the boss would come back up. Other bosses will make their presence known throughout the course of the year until they are all available for discovery and defeating on the Ettenmoor's landscape. So these guys are all coming out into the world, not the world, but just into the Ettenmoor's map. So there's going to be a lot of things to do in the map now. It's pretty cool. Like I said, all the more things to get you engaged with actually going out there, because right now there's not a reason to, unless you just like to do raid versus raid. Encouraging and enticing people to go out for different reasons is a good idea. And so consumables, this is another thing that they just acknowledge is jacked up right now. Consumables in the Ettenmoors are in dire need of adjustment, and we will be making those adjustments over time to make them more valuable and viable in the fights. They've been untouched for far too long and are in dire need of updates. That's pretty straightforward, and I agree. Like, you go get some of these consumables and they just don't do anything. If they were percentage based, maybe, like aren't the creep side percentage based? I don't remember. But yeah, the consumables are kind of whack, so I'm glad that's being addressed as well. Incentives, some ideas we have along the lines are weekly wrapper quests with selectable range of rewards for both sides of the fight, whether those are LI rewards for the quest or a complete overhaul of the chests that use the tokens of valor. It's all on the table. Using a term like it's all on the table is very good for us as players, because that means they are taking a good long look at this and they understand at this point, like, Orion loves PvP. He sees the value in PvP, and that is huge, especially because he is the lead systems designer. So I have a feeling it's a little bit easier for him to get things done, in a manner of speaking. Closing this out for now, this touches on some of the updates that we want to make to the Ettenmoors. Some of this is rather broad strokes ideas, and some are more formulated and further along. This is by no means a comprehensive list of updates that we're planning over the course of the year. I didn't even touch on enhancements and inclusion of potential allegiances to the monster players, as is something that will support the monster player only community through the period when the players are moving to the next level cap. There are a host of ideas. These are just the portions of the iceberg that have buoyed above the surface. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts on these offerings. And then they mentioned here on as well, leaving the thread open till Wednesday or Thursday. Do my best to answer the questions that are asked here in good faith. Then we'll close the thread and look at the feedback and make adjustments and so on. The one thing on here, I cannot address anything that is related to quote unquote fix the lag. Our engineers are working diligently on that, and we are actively discussing other options. You gonna give me that instance PvP, Orion? Instance-based PvP. Let's make it happen. It's 2023. Let's go. Let's do it. There you have it. So that's kind of what they're looking at in this first round of updates for PvMP in 2023. I think it looks good. It's a good start. I like that it's kind of a jarring update of what we're seeing here. You know, it's not just, hey, we're looking at a couple skills and we're gonna move this camp here. And I like that there's a fundamental change in the way that they want PvP to happen in the Ettenmoors. They are encouraging people to go do things. They're encouraging it with events and rewards and incentives. I have talked about that for years. You need to incentivize certain types of gameplay. Otherwise, it will go unused. You will have wasted dev cycles on it. I think it's pretty cool. Let me know what you guys think.